Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome back to the Landy Lodge podcast, where today we're talking FF16. So much has dropped. There's so much that's out there. The 1 to 2 hours that this episode is going to be won't nearly cover it. Much love and major shout out to all of you that are hanging out now. Let me know that my sounds are good. But before we dive into the goods, let's give a shout out to the epic sages of the lodge, the beautiful names you see on your screen who donate as little as $1 a month to keep my nonsense going. And, it's always comfortable having a little bit of their support, because then I could take some risks that might otherwise get me demonetized. Like show you some footage that I'm going to show you here today. We take the risk. What could you say? Anyway, much love to them. Would it be possible without them? Again, we also won't just be talking FF16. I've got some Square Enix news I think we should touch on. But without further ado, let's get into this. FF16. What's going on, Lamb? A sage of the lodge among us. Final Fantasy 16. Before we get too into the footage, I want to talk about the combat. I want to talk about the characters, soundtrack. There's so much I want to discuss. But before we get into all of that, allow me to sort of monologue on this a little bit. And there's a reason I pull up this screenshot to showcase here in the beginning. What's up, Valkyrie? I see you're here. I feel like this game somehow just got this reputation that it's just going to be this dark, brooding, sort of just overly gothic sort of look. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely a lot of dark, brooding, and gothic influence and elements in this game. But I feel too often we overlook the stuff they've showed us like this that is just beautiful. Like, look at the distance between where we are and this town, right? Like, I'm hoping, right? We'll get into it. They talk about sort of the world exploration mechanics, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I'm really hoping the journey from town to town is as beautiful as this. You guys know me, I'm a total sicko, and I love things like walking mechanics in games. I hope this game has a nice steady stroll you could take, because I would love to just take this in. Walk over to that fortress-looking city up ahead and just take that in. It's one of the most beautiful, gaming landscapes I've seen from a PS5 showcase game. And I suppose while we're on it, we should address some of what they talked about. And I'm going to pull up some of the interviews and some of their direct quotes. But I suppose while we're talking about the exploration, we do know now this is not going to be an open world game. Not in the sense that, say, an Elden Ring is or a Breath of the Wild was. But what they are going to have is sort of, I guess the way they put it is open world zones. And if I have it, we'll pull up their exact quotes. But sort of having an open zone mentality where the exploration is going to be mostly focused into the towns, cities, and zones that you see here. As opposed to putting a lot of weight into the journey from town to town. I think they're putting as much of the creative budget and the weight into the towns and cities themselves to make those worth exploring, to make those expansive. Because even from this one that we could see here, it's huge. If that isn't just an exaggeration or supposed to just be sort of a representation of what you enter, if you could actually go to each one of these buildings, that's crazy. And I kind of have a feeling that might be the case, especially the way they talk about it. Because again, and I feel like the remake trilogy has a very similar philosophy, that what they would rather do, as opposed to making all of it sort of open exploration throughout the whole map, is to really flesh out certain pockets of the map and make that the strength of the exploration aspect. But anyway, I just wanted to get on my soapbox there for a second and say, I don't think this game should be looked at like it's not going to be colorful and beautiful. And we'll have a lot more examples other than this. But there's a lot that they showed us that I think reinforces that. Even though this is shaping up to be one of the darkest, if not the darkest, Final Fantasy of all time. But we'll get into that in a minute. Let's get started here. By the way, we have a lot of accounts and a lot of different sources to thank. Let's start with Turquoise Hammer. And everyone I mention, I've got their links in the YouTube description. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple a few days from now, it will be in that description as well. But anyway, here's just some info that we've gathered. And we'll watch some of the clips too to see for ourselves. But as they say right here, Final Fantasy XVI's combat is reported to be quicker than God of War, but not so frantic and fast-paced as DMC or Nier. It gives some Bloodborne and Elden Ring vibes, which is interesting to me. By the way, I know I got a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans on my channel. We'll get into it a little bit down the line, but you'll be happy to know that some of the Kingdom Hearts team has worked on this game. Which is crazy to think about. But anyway, let's zoom in on this picture a little bit. And I want to move it around for you guys so we can see everything. Here's Clive's health bar. Which, you know, standard looking stuff. Personally, it's not my favorite looking interface, if I'm being honest. But it's pretty nifty. I'll give it that. I'll give it that. I do like that you're going to be able to cycle between the summons, and I suppose we could get into that. I love what they're doing with the summons in this game. Let me see. Where do I have it pulled up? Okay, this is it. We're going to get into the sword combat and the base level combat, but they showed off a whole different aspect of this game's combat that, like, I am very excited to talk about. Mostly because this is some of the newer stuff that they've shown us. But these summon battles look insane. And we're going to watch one of them too. We're going to watch one of them today. But check this out. Yoshida says Ifrit will only feel sluggish during the battle with Garuda, which is a battle that we're going to watch. And you'll see that you could tell it's a fight from early in the game, and he doesn't have a lot of movement quite yet. But this is good that they're reinforcing this. From there on out, you'll be facing icons 5 times as big as you. So the speed of the gameplay in those segments will increase drastically. Which is good to hear, because the fight, if you haven't watched it yet, is really, really cool, but it is a little slow-paced. But again, it's obviously the first... it's honestly the first icon battle that you're going to have. So obviously it's going to pull the most punches and be the most basic. Which I guess we could do a quick little lore dump for those who might be listening that don't know much about this game. The way the summons are being utilized, basically, is you have dominants and then you have icons. Now, a dominant is somebody who can seemingly invoke/evoke certain summons. Like your main character is going to be able to do that with Ifrit, right? We're going to watch a battle with Benedicta, who she's the dominant of the icon Garuda. So just to kind of put all of that in perspective, and we'll watch that fight because it is sick. It is sick. I suppose what we could do, maybe, let's get this pulled up. We're going to watch the fight with Garuda. I'm going to pause it here and there just to talk about some of the things I'm noticing. Those of you hanging in the chat, Lamb, Kevin, Valkyrie, you see anything you want to talk about or worth mentioning, feel free to point it out. But let's switch this up. We'll go to this view for it. You guys just let me know that the sounds are okay. And let's give this a rip.
I expected more from the old man.
So we got Clive Rossfield, the hero of Final Fantasy XVI, is a man on a dark and dangerous road to revenge. Which is cool, man. I like that we're going to have a revenge story. You know, as someone who is a big fan of some of the more lighthearted Final Fantasy games, or the ones that play it a little bit more light-handedly, I love that we're getting a revenge-motivated story. I think some of the coolest stories and coolest characters come out of revenge-motivated stories. But anyway, let's roll this tape.
Unless from you. This is the second time you've bested my sisters. Men of your talents are rare indeed. Why call...
Ooh, let me backtrack to that. After defeating Harpies, Suparna, and Shirada, which I have those fights too. If we have time, we'll get into that. I'm not sure we'll be able to get to everything I want to get to today, but if we have time, we'll get to that. Clive confronts Benedicta Harmon. So, this is obviously the aftermath of a previous fight. You beat her lessers, and now you get to take her on.
Men of your talents are rare indeed. Why cost your lot with such undesirables? If it is the hearth you long for, you will find more than enough warmth under my wings.
You know exactly what I
That was just reaffirming Benedicta is the dominant of the icon Garuda.
want. Hand over the dominant, and I'll leave you in peace.
By the way, how
You would
excellent,
dare to make demands
how
of me.
excellent is the voice acting?
Know your place, little lamb. Fool is the shepherd who heeds every bleat of the flock. And I will suffer yours no longer.
Yo, I see. Kevin, Kevin, I was thinking this earlier. Kevin Ribeiro in the chat says, Benedicta is giving me Larxene vibes. Dude, every time I've watched this fight, and I think this is going to be my third time watching it, I've thought the same thing. Even though she's not quite as lightning focused, obviously, because she's the dominant of Garuda, but I've totally gotten like Larxene vibes. Definitely seeing it.
Must I spell it out for you, Branded? No one is listening. No one at all! Ah! Come, little lamb, to the slaughter with you.
So intense. Again, the voice acting is great. Okay, so first things first, what do we see here? So, we have two separate battle menus here. One, you hold down R2 and you seem to activate this one. We've gone over this on some of the other Final Fantasy 16 podcasts we did, where, we've seen these combat menus before, but let's just go through a refresher. So obviously, when you hold R2, it looks like the circle button right over here. That's what's going to be your summon ability. So honestly, I don't know if anybody in the chat is familiar with Persona, but I'm starting to get Persona vibes from the way icons are being used here. So obviously you have Clive, who he's going to be Ifrit's dominant. But as we see from some of these scenes and some of the stuff we've learned, he's going to gain other icons' abilities. So you're going to be stacking Shiva's ability, Garuda's ability, probably Odin, maybe even Ramu. And each one comes with a unique ability that when holding R2, it looks like Circle activates that. I'm sure we'll have control over where we can place these things, by the way. And as we see up here, we can open an L2 menu where it seems like you can cycle between the different icons, which is cool. I'm excited to see how many of those we're going to get through this journey. And then if we look at the bottom left, this obviously seems to be a sort of like miscellaneous menu. Right now, it's sort of like it looks like it's got items, everything here. But back here, and my favorite feature that we've seen is that you can control Torgal, the dog, with the D-pad. So basically, you can give him different commands to attack, heal, defend. It's just so cool that not only can you have what looks to me to be a very intuitive battle interface, but the sheer fact that even though this is going to be basically a one-player sort of driven battle system, that it's sort of like you're playing as 1.5 fighters, you know what I mean? Because you can control Torgal, and I'm willing to bet that if you have anybody else in your party, like Jill, I'm willing to bet you could do the same stuff with her, which I think is really cool. Okay. Lamb in the chat says, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is made by the same people that developed FF14. Absolutely. The same studio, the same unit, right? So Square Enix splits itself up into units. You have Creative Business Unit 1, and that's the unit responsible for Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, responsible for the Kingdom Hearts series. This is Creative Business Unit 3, who made Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 16. I believe they made 12. I may have to be fact-checked on that. But yes, you're correct in saying so. Kevin Ribeiro says, I felt the same. The dominants feel so much like Persona users. Yeah, I've been getting the same vibes, dude. The same vibes. Let's keep it going. So sick. Okay, you see that? That is cool. That's the other thing I've noticed. Let's wind this back a little bit. It seems like the counter system is based on dodging, where if you dodge at the perfect time, you sort of ignite this sort of counter where you can really beat up on your enemy. Check it out. There it is. See that? That not this time. And how sick is the soundtrack? Come on. I'll say this. The one thing that I don't like right here, and the good news is I've learned that you can turn this off, and this game is supposed to be very customizable to your ideal experience. But when you do damage, these numbers appear. I'm going to turn that off. I'm turning that shit off. I think it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure for certain players, there's something about that aesthetic they like. I'm not a big fan. But I just think it's cool that that's something that you could toggle on and off. All right, let's run it.
Not this time.
Hey, see, right now he's using Titan. And Titan uses a block. You see what he just did right there? That was one of the Icon's abilities. That Titan block, the Titanic block. So that's pretty cool, man. That not all their abilities are just going to be like a special attack or a cinematic attack. That there's actually going to be some like technique application to when these icons are best applied. And I like that it's not all offensive based. I like that that's a defensive tactic. And staggers are back. I'm a big fan of staggers. I thought staggers were pretty good in Final Fantasy 13, but they really nailed it in Remake. And again, you see, this is just not for me. I think the game would look so much more beautiful without these numbers flying everywhere. I know when I'm messing my enemy up. I know. Very. And I like that smooth transition, too. That was a smooth transition.
Where is he?
Lamb asks me, do you think FF16 has potential to be the best game in the series? I mean, absolutely it does. You know, I think with a lot of the tools developers have at their disposal now, and with the consistency we're starting to see out of these teams as of late, right? Let's be honest, Creative Business Unit 3, that's the hot hand at Square Enix, excuse me. They're the biggest. Final Fantasy 14 is the biggest MMO in the world, and it's the best-selling Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy 7. You know? Last time I checked, I think it's sold close to 11 million copies. This team is on fire. You know? And look, as someone who loves Final Fantasy 14, and as someone who really enjoys the combat of Final Fantasy 14, I think its combat could be considered a weak point. Seeing this team now get behind a combat system that's going for it all like this, not that 14 wasn't going for it all, but it's not action RPG the way this is. Yeah, it's going to have a shot, that's for sure, but so does Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That equally has a shot to be the best. But let's keep rolling.
Won't ask again.
I am a sucker for form changes. I'm just going to say it. I am a sucker for form changes. Okay, and one thing, not to fanboy too hard, but one of the things that does worry me about the combat is I don't want there to be too many cinematic attacks. I love cinematic attacks. I think they're awesome. I don't want there to be too many. And again, it looks like we have reaction commands. I'll pause the next time we get one. Yeah, baby! He's gonna be my favorite, baby. He's a good boy. Yo, that form change is sick. Hold on. Look at that. That is sick, dude. Which is really impressive. And I'll make sure to stop it next time we get a reaction command. AC, it looks smooth. Like the way Clive is navigating the map while he's locked on looks very smooth to me. I like seeing that Titanic block. There we go. See, I think that's the Phoenix shift that we just saw. And I gotta say, I want to hear more of the soundtrack. The battle themes have all sounded really cool, but I want to hear more town themes and character themes. It was a random thought. Maybe we'll talk about that a little more, but I felt like I had to bring that up. AC, the stagger I think is really cool too. I'm glad they're bringing that back. Oh wait, can the Titanic block be used offensively too? We'll have to keep an eye on that. But you gotta hand it to him. These cinematics are unbelievable. For those who may be listening audio only and can only hear the sound effects and the music, I highly recommend looking up the Final Fantasy XVI fight with Benedicta when you get a chance. Hey, see, here we go. Oh, let's wind that back. Let's wind that back. So, we have reaction commands. And again, we talked about that the Kingdom Hearts team has worked on this game. Now, to my understanding and from what I was able to read, they primarily worked on the icon battles. Not necessarily these fights. They were used in the icon battles. But it's cool to see reaction commands. And even though this is ridiculously long, it's obviously the beginning of the game. He's level 14. And from what I saw, the further in the game you get, the less time you have to react. And I like that. I like that. See, there's another one right there. I see red reaction commands are to dodge, blue are to attack. Yo, that is sick. All right, all right. Let's see. Here, let's move over to here. Check this out. This is some Torgal gameplay. Let's check out some Torgal gameplay. Whoa, what happened to the quality? That was weird. Anyway, let's get some Torgal gameplay here. So there's the good boy in the back. And again, I gotta say the navigation looks very smooth. And yeah, you know what? I want to see emphasis on blocking. I feel like, and this is just a personal gripe of mine, I want to see more action RPGs really lean into blocking and countering. And from the little bit that we could see here, it seems to be the case. All right, let's skip to the finishing move because I think that's really cool, and then we'll move on. Sick. I love that. I love that like sort of victory screen. I don't know if you saw that it shows you your stagger damage too. All right, let's watch this scene.
You are but a branded. How did you do it? How did you even survive? How?
Damn, that voice crack.
He was fighting for something he believed in.
Shut up! Why aren't you dead?
We've played your games.
Now tell me where he is.
What are you?
Yo, this is the sick part. So like I was telling you guys before, this is him extracting Garuda out of her. I think she obviously could still use Garuda, that's my understanding, but now he has these abilities. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that makes him an anomaly. And I love this little detail too, that it seems to really fuck him up. Pardon my French. But like, it's not a joyous experience. You're the good boy! But come on, man. That was sick. Major shout out to Gamatsu for that footage. Let's switch on over now. And let's talk about Torgal, who I think is awesome. Oop, that's the wrong. Let's make sure you guys can read that. So, moving on with some Torgal news. First of all, he's an adorable puppy. I don't know if you guys could see. But Takai says the animator responsible for Torgal's lovable movements in FF16 is a mid-career hire he interviewed. Takai asked her what kind of animation she'd like to do, to which she replied, I love animals. I want to animate dogs more than anything. And again, like, this is the sort of thing that I've seen come out of Square Enix a lot. More often than not, it seems like a lot of this stuff is being crafted with love. And the people who get their assignments, be it as small, big, periphery as they may be, put their heart and soul into it. So I'm sure Torgal is, I'm just sure he's going to be awesome, man. But I'm also terrified they're going to kill him. I don't know if anybody else is. I'm terrified they're going to kill him. Because if you want to make like your players feel something, yeah, getting rid of the dog that follows you the whole game, that'll, oof. I'll sue for emotional damage. Let's move on. This coming from the account Audrey. We'll circle back on this one because we just watched some cinematics, but she's really just complimenting the voice acting, which, even with the little bit we were able to listen to, was phenomenal. Here's some more of the artwork, which again, this is kind of what we were talking about in the beginning, that I feel like this game has gotten the reputation that it's going to be like super dark, super brooding, but they've shown a lot of things. It's like, no, that colorful fantasy aesthetic that we're looking for is going to be there, you know? Just, it's going to share some screen time with that more dark, gothic aesthetic. Okay. This one coming from the account Dream Boom or Baum, and he goes by Bring Peanut Butter, so clearly a man of culture, shows us that Final Fantasy XVI will have a central hub location. Ooh. Let me shrink this down for you guys. Okay. Yoshida described Valisthea as a massive detailed world full of places to explore, but it is not an open world. Oh, there's Kobe. He heard me talking about Torgal, and it really upset him. I don't know if it's because he's jealous or if because he's also scared that we're going to lose Torgal. But anyway, it is not an open world. Areas appear to be contained, and players will be able to travel across Valisthea from a central hub location. In the playable demo, set about 5 hours into the story, I took control of Clive, sneaked into a fortress tower in search of Benedicta, we just met her. Clive comes simply armed. He has light armor and a sword. At his side, he has Torgal and Cid. Man, he's got his homie and he's got his doge. And they'll sometimes aid him in battle autonomously. But Clive's greatest power comes from the icons. That's wild. Let's blow this back up. You know, I like games with a central hub. I really do. I think having a central hub is a really good way to build your world's culture. It's a really good way to flesh certain characters out, right? Because that hub can be some of their home, or it could be their getaway. And there's a lot you could do with that. areas are contained. So Kingdom Hearts. I mean, look, there seems to be Kingdom Hearts influence in this game, whether it be, that similarity you brought up or the fact that Kingdom Hearts devs have worked on this. Okay. This one is about Final Fantasy XVI being PS5 exclusive, which is pretty rare, by the way. There's not a lot of games that are PS5 exclusive. We'll get into that. Everybody just hang tight. I got to refill my waters from all this chatting, so enjoy the Be Right Back, and we'll get back into some FF16. All right. We are back. Thank you for waiting. Need to stay hydrated. You know how it is. But let me tell you something. Something very weird happened. The second I put the Be Right Back screen on, a telemarketer called me. Somebody out there is watching the show at work, and I was on the client list. Anyway, let's get back into it. So let's read up on this. Here's an interview with Yoshi P. Regarding the PC version of FF16, during a broadcast, your comments became a topic of discussion. Please, could you tell us again? Firstly, for Final Fantasy XVI, due to the timed exclusivity contract, we cannot release other platforms' versions for 6 months. Which, that's not bad, man. Back in the day, an exclusive was an exclusive. Now it's like 6-month contracts. It's great for gamers. Anyway, I suspect many people probably don't know why we enter such contracts. I mean, listen, we know why. It's because Sony gives them a lot of money. The bottom line is Sony needs to give people an incentive to buy their console. So they pay top dollar for these exclusivity contracts. So I imagine Square Enix got a heavy penny from from them for that. So anyway, let's move on. From the player's perspective, I think they'll perceive it as something like it is for the hardware manufacturer to... I really should read ahead. But you know what? This is why I like going in blind. When it comes to these things, I do review a few things before these podcasts, but I do like to go into a lot of this blind. Sometimes we stumble on funny moments like that. But are we wrong? Anyway, Yoshida says, of course, I think there is also that kind of intention on the hardware manufacturer's part. However, from our point of view, the technical support we receive from the hardware manufacturer is a big factor to signing such contracts. I'm sure he'll elaborate. This time, there was a portion where we were developing together. I don't know what that acronym is for. If anybody knows, feel free to share it in the live chat or drop it in the comments below if you're watching after the fact. Engineers who know the hardware thoroughly down to the core, and we received generous support in optimization that we could not manage on our own, and so on. Also, by not developing on the premise of multiple platforms, we could invest more man-hours into such things as building the game and optimization. I wonder how much of this is true. I wonder how much of this is him being a clever little sneak. In addition, we can also do promotions together globally that make me wonder how much would this be if it was converted to money. Technological and promotional support are things we would like to receive if we can receive them. Okay, so I guess what he's trying to say is it's, at the end of the day, it's not all about the money and that both parties stand to benefit. Which is interesting. Honestly, I never really thought of it like that. I never really thought of it like that. That's interesting. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting article coming to us from Gematsu again, from Sal Romano. I'm not going to read the whole thing. There's some juicy stuff in here and some interesting ideas I thought I'd share. Check this out. The 4 main pillars. Final Fantasy XVI has been developed with a focus on 4 main pillars, things that players have come to expect from the games in the series. Narrative, where they're saying they wanted to go back to a rich, high fantasy roots of the series. Okay. Second, we have a vast ensemble cast. So narrative and characters as the main 2 pillars. I like that. As a Final Fantasy fan, that makes me happy to hear. However, I'm going to be very upset if gameplay is not one of the 4. And I'm a little bit... Never mind. I'm nitpicking, but I would have preferred if gameplay was brought up first. Let's keep going. And this is why it's important to read. And okay, that's the final one. Our development has also put a focus on graphical quality. Okay, so we have the 4 pillars of Final Fantasy. Narrative, characters, graphical quality, and here he's saying, finally, and possibly most importantly, a fresh, exciting new battle system. I love that. The 4 pillars: narrative, cast of characters, graphics, gameplay, combat. Again, as a Final Fantasy fan, these are the things I want to hear them say. This is what I want to hear them saying in interviews. Personally, this is the stuff I like to hear. Okay, let's keep rolling. Again, I want to watch more combat and stuff, but I want to keep rolling through some of this info, news, and interviews. Again, I'm not going to read full things outright. I've got a bunch of links in the description for you if you want to see it for yourself. But let's keep this rolling. Okay, there's combat. We'll get to that. Now this, let's move this over. Okay. This is where things get pretty intense, I will say. But let's get into it. Gematsu asks, so much of what we've seen so far of Final Fantasy XVI has been very dark in tone. Will there be any lighter elements to the game, either story-wise or gameplay-wise? Gameplay-wise, can we expect things like mini-games like fishing or blitzball? Okay, obviously not blitzball, but the Final Fantasy XVI equivalent, Clive Ball. Now, the context of this question is important because there's a portion of Yoshida's response that went viral when, if we're being honest, not having the context of the question changes everything. But let's keep going. Yoshida says we have some very dark themes that the story revolves around. We have countries at war. We can't really have some blitzball matches going on when people are killing each other. And then when you have this hero who's talking about being driven like revenge, saying he's going to go out and fish, in that sense, there aren't those type of light things that are going to detract from the story that we're trying to tell. Now look, Yoshi P here is not shitting on Final Fantasy games that have blitzball or fishing. What he's saying is that's just not his creative vision. Personally, I don't think there's a problem with that. If anything, I take solace knowing he has a vision. Anyway, let's move on. However, if you remember from the presentation, we talked about Sid, and Sid has this organization. Their headquarters is the place called the Hideaway. I think that's going to be the hub. And once Clive meets up with Sid and is able to join that organization, then you have this kind of hub from where all this side content that's separate from the main story starts. Cool, so it's going to be a cool little side quest hub too. And so we have things like quests where you can learn about the people in the Hideaway, or quests where you can learn about the people in the world. Okay. Quests where you can help upgrade Clive, like earning more inventory slots. Music to my ears. Too often, I find side quests are held back by lack of good incentives. Doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem here. There are other types of activities as well, such as the Hunt board, which I'm sure will be similar to FF14's. Okay, let's keep going. I'm going to have Takai-san talk a little more about it, but there's even more types of side content as well. Things that are not even related to the story, like an arcade mode where you can earn high scores, which has a leaderboard and things like that. We'll have him talk more about that later. But one thing we want you to understand is that the media tour and this demo that we gave you takes our parts of the game focused on the combat. And so because of that, it's going to be very violent. Oh no. Anyway, it's going to be very dark and it's going to be very action oriented. Again, all music to my ears. And not really touch upon the more lighter aspects of the game. There are lighter aspects that are more emotional aspects of the game. You have themes such as brotherly love and the love of a nation, love of others, these friendships, these bonds, and the things that you've come to expect from the Final Fantasy series. Those type of themes will also be covered in 16 as well. And there are portions that are going to get deeply emotional. That means the feels. And there are also lighter parts, because when you talk about a story that's dark, it's always about finding hope in that darkness. And there's lots of hope in this game as well. Who boy. Kevin Ribeiro says, in arcade mode, I wonder if that's why the health bars look like Tekken and Street Fighter. Yeah, no, there's going to be a mode sort of emulating that, and like a scoreboard too, like a high scoreboard. There's going to be aspects of that, which I do like. It builds a community that way. Let's see what else we got. Okay, this is another one. This is another one that without context can be misinterpreted. Again, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Yoshi P can't be explosive in interviews. Honestly, it's one of the things I like about him. I think that's a lot of his passion coming through, like him boldly stating, like, no, my vision is different from Creative Business Unit 1's vision. You know? JK, dude, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. Okay, Den of Geek says, you mentioned different eras of Final Fantasy. Is it your hope that 16 is a new path forward for the franchise? Do you hope that every Final Fantasy game can always be different and try new things? Yoshida says, moving forward, we don't want to push the Final Fantasy series in one direction. One thing I remember when I first joined and took over, the director Katase-san told me, Final Fantasy is what the creators at the time think Final Fantasy should be, and that is what you should do when creating this game. I have some thoughts about that. I think everything Katase-san said right there is the series' biggest strength, but also its biggest weakness. And I think that's why it shakes people a little bit. But Yoshi P is trying to make that its strength, and I can respect that. Anyway, let's keep going. I really took that to heart. And so I want that to be the same thing creators moving forward can do. What they think is best. Because that is what we are doing. Creating the best Final Fantasy that we can create. One thing that I noticed working on the series for so long and speaking to fans all around the world is that Final Fantasy gets locked into certain types. It has become a niche series that in the sense it's only about JRPGs or anime characters, teens saving the world. And that's what all the games are going to be like going forward. Fans were getting locked into this image of what they thought Final Fantasy was. So the quote goes on from there about him essentially being older and wanting to tell a darker, more mature story. But ultimately, what he's saying is that, look, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. You guys know that. I love this series. But it is getting put into a box because, before Final Fantasy XIV, the most successful projects and the ones everybody had their eyes on were coming out of Creative Business Unit 1, which we know is very anime influenced. It has a more lighthearted tone. The characters are generally a little bit younger. Kingdom Hearts, FF7, good examples of this. JK says it shouldn't be a group of teens beat a bad guy and then kill God every time. Agree. And look, JK, beautiful. This is why I love you, dog. There's nothing wrong with a group of teens beating a bad guy and then killing a god. We love that story. But if you're going to have Creative Business Unit 1 and then Creative Business Unit 3, have them do different things. You know, mix it up. That's what this series is about. Clearly, that's what they're saying. And if Final Fantasy is getting put into a box, then that means this series has a big problem. And if FF16 can solve for that, then let's go. That's how I feel. Okay. I say it's time we watch a little bit more combat. I think it's time we watch a little bit more combat. What do you guys say? What do you guys say? Let's give this a look. Let me know how the sounds are.
What the hell happened here?
Oh, this is them meeting up with Garuda, which, by the way, Sid's voice actor is brilliant.
Rare, isn't it?
Do I seem so desperate as to grovel at the feet of a false god? I was waiting for you.
Not for too long, I hope. All this for a midnight chat. Well, let's chat then. Where are the men and women you took from Lost Wing?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I feel like this guy was modeled after the Chad meme. Because I'm getting major Alpha Chad vibes from my boy Sid right here. Let's keep it going.
You mean where's the dominant? Well, you shall be requiring his services indefinitely. Come back to me, Sidolphus. I need you. Think of all the things we can create together. The world that we can build.
You need me. Your king needs me.
Giga Sid.
In a new world. Just not his. That bastard's dreams are as twisted as his promises are false. And I want no part of them.
King Barnabas saved you, and this is how you speak of him. Have you no shred of loyalty?
I'm sorry, but if his name is King Barnabas, I'm going to be calling him King Barney all game. And nobody can stop me.
What? To a leader who'd use me? Like he uses...
Oh, damn. He's the dominant of Odin? Oh, my theory brain just exploded. Oh, I missed that the first time I watched this. Whoa. Okay. Okay, keep it rolling. What's going on, Gabriel?
You know nothing of me, Sidolphus.
You're right. I don't know who you are anymore. Or what you want. I only know what you used to say. That you were tired of running. That you just wanted to be free. Free.
Oh, so she's going to join our party, or at least join as an ally. Because that'd be cool. I think she's cool, man. I think that'd be awesome. All right. Let's hit the chat for a second here. Gabriel says, also, I think it's great how long of a time span this game covers. That's new for an FF game, right? Okay. So let me think. 6 doesn't have a big time skip like that. 7 doesn't. 8 doesn't. 9 doesn't. 9 has a time skip at the end. Like at the very end. But it's short. 10? No. Haven't played 11. 12, I'm like 75% done. No time skip. 13. Base 13, nothing like that. I haven't played 13-2 or Lightning Returns. I'm literally going through the list for you, man. 14 does. 14 does. Without giving away too much. 14 does. 15 does too. 15 has a big time skip too. So it seems to be a trend as of late, actually. Let's keep it rolling.
Free of it all. You weren't lying to me then, so what changed? What made you think you had to sacrifice who you were to get what you wanted?
Sacrifice. I use my talents to my advantage, and you would tell me there is shame in that?
If there's no shame, then why do you feel so sorry for yourself? Oh,
Also, getting British voice actors. Oh, I've played all of FF14. Okay, then I think you know what I'm talking about. You know, between some of the things that happen in Shadowbringers and Endwalker. 6, 7, 9, 10, 14, 15, 7R. Dude, we've played the same FF games. I think the only one I have played that you haven't listed is 13 and 12, but we played a lot of the same ones. Yeah, I'm missing that early era that this particular game is calling back to, which is why I like it. I feel like I'm getting a piece of the series that I've missed, and I plan to go back and play those early Final Fantasy games, but I'm still playing through 12. I want to play the full 13 trilogy. 16's around the corner. Rebirth. Too many goddamn games. Keep it going.
A rousing speech, Lord Commander. I was a fool to believe you might have changed. The only person I feel sorry for is you! I can't do this anymore.
It's literally a Persona awakening scene.
If you would stand between our leash and his dream, then you leave me no choice. Goodbye, Sidolphus.
And again, we talked about it earlier. I am such a sucker for form changes, man. What can I say?
Back, Clive.
Let's go. Okay, so for those who might be watching this for the first time, first off, I'm honored that you would do so with me. If they can make the combat feel as epic as this cinematic fight looks, oh, we're in for a treat. Like, so sick. And I love the color themes. Like the blue on green, her blue eyes with the light green. Like, look at this, baby. Oh, I'll get a better pause than that. Smacked him. Anyway, by the way, guys, there's so much to cover, so there's not necessarily going to be a questions portion. I'm just going to go back and forth with you guys in the chat throughout the whole thing, because there's so much to cover. But I wanted to point out what Gabe said in the chat here, which I think is really cool. It says the M rating helps too. In my opinion, I think T is limited for storytelling. Not that it has to be overly violent or sexual, but that you can tackle any theme. I couldn't agree more, dude. You know, you follow up saying that this is an issue in 7 Remake. And again, listen, I'm a 7 Remake shill. I'm a Final Fantasy VII shill, baby. I say that obviously in jest, but I love Final Fantasy VII. The trilogy is like among my most highly anticipated games ever right now. But you are right. Like, the fact that it has to stick to a T rating does get in the way of the storytelling. Not that you can't tell a perfectly fine story with T, but you could see that Final Fantasy VII pushes the boundary of trying to tackle as mature a topic as it can. But you have things where, like, now because graphics are so realistic, if they included as much blood as they did in the PS1 game, they'd have to be rated M. And honestly, blood can leave a huge impact. If we saw blood splurt out of Barrett when he got stabbed, if we followed the trail of blood to Sephiroth in Remake like we did in the original, it would have had a bigger impact. So those things sort of do get in the way. I love that Yoshi P is just pursuing complete creative freedom in the sense that whether it's there's no topic too mature, there's no fight that could be too violent. And again, I'm excited to see what they do with it. I really am. Let's keep it rolling. Big oof.
Finish them.
Oh shit. Sorry guys. Let me fix that. There we go. And honestly, the character designs have really grown on me. Really grown on me. especially Sid and Benedicta. But check this out. Again, I love that. That sort of warp strike is sick. It just looks like you have so much fluid motion from the counters and the dodges, from being able to warp strike like that. And honestly, even pay attention when Clive is using long-range attacks. I'll say that right now. Pay attention when Clive is using long-range attacks. He seems very fluid as he's moving around. So sick. D-Tench, what's going on? And again, I like seeing that. I like that they call them cinematic events. Call a spade a spade. It's a cinematic thing. Staggered. And again, I'm a big fan of stagger. I think that's a great way to structure action combat. Yo, get him, Torgal! Oh, that was sick, too. And again, it looks like the AI that's controlling Torgal is really smart, too.
She doesn't look happy, Torgal. Come on.
Oh! Sick 'em. That's the sick 'em command. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, see? Look at this. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Like that. You see that? You see how he's able to, like, sort of bait the enemy and react quickly when he was locked on long range? That was awesome. Honestly, the more I watch the combat over and over, the more I'm getting excited for it. And let's take a look at this. So these are the stats we're going to be rolling with. We got our level and HP, attack, defense, stagger. Now this is interesting. So I guess this is there are going to be certain attacks that are driven towards stagger. I think I was watching, I forgot which character it was. Or Garuda, rather, the Garuda abilities that you'll get after beating Benedicta in battle. The Garuda abilities, they heighten your stagger a lot. So I think we've got a whole separate sort of attack stat for that. Then you have your strength, vitality, and I suppose this is will. And then he goes to check on your boy.
Sid, are you all right?
Do I look all right?
You got smacked, dog. Atta boy, big man. Come on.
Benedicta will be on her way to collect the dominant, if she hasn't already. You can't afford to let them leave.
And you see, we were just talking about blood, right? I'm glad that this is showing. Because, like, and again, I want to preface that I absolutely love and adore Final Fantasy VII and this new trilogy that's coming out. And can't wait for it. But think about the impact of seeing all this blood on Sid compared to, like, Biggs sort of being in the same position. Remember when that plate was going to fall and Biggs basically got put in this condition during the battle? And he's laying there just like this, difficulty breathing, difficulty moving, but there's no blood. He's clean. He looks like he's ready to go out, Seeing Sid all beat up, parts of his face swollen, blood splattered on him, on his hand, it makes me feel like immersion. I'll leave it at immersion. Let's keep going.
Remember, She has wings, you don't.
What about you?
Before or after I catch my breath?
Sorry. Come on, Torgal.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, let's switch it back. What have we not covered? Oh, perfect. Perfect. We couldn't have opened up to a better page. Couldn't have opened up to a better page. All right, let me hop into the chat for a second here before we move forward. Kevin Ribeiro says the effects of his combos change depending on what dominant he's using. Absolutely. If it's Garuda, Bird Claws, circle him. If it's Phoenix, that's right. It's the fires, the like fire feathers. And Titan, he's full on JoJo. I like the Titanic block, I gotta say. I can't see green, dude. What's up? Somebody said it, I already think, but the M rating allows for more realistic and, as you said, immersive. That's exactly what we're talking about, is that they're really going to use that to their advantage, as they should. As they should. But let's get into the Chad, our boy in this game, Sidolphus, will have a hideout from which he bases his resistance activities. Clive will be living there with him for a while. Inside is a shop, and again, this is coming from Turquoise Hammer, by the way, is a shop as well as a place to craft. You can even expand the base by completing side quests. It will essentially act as a hub for that section. I love that. I love games. Again, open world is great, but you know what? You see me wearing this Zelda shirt. We're going to have Tears of the Kingdom for that, baby. Give me one that's got a dope hub with awesome sort of open zones that I can explore and really dive into, which seems to be the direction here. But let's take a look at Sid. Let's maybe zoom in. Okay, it doesn't work. Of course not. Anyway, again, something I've mentioned is the character designs are really growing on me. You know, obviously I'm partial to Tetsuya Nomura's work, you know, as you can see. But nothing wrong with different flavors. And it's foolish to, you know, how do I put this? I want to try and put this eloquently. Even though this isn't the typical design that I go for, I can oh God, I gotta sneeze. We're good. Even though this is not the typical sort of design I go for in games, obviously, you know, a lot of the stuff I'm drawn to are very anime focused, have very much so an anime aesthetic. However, I love that Final Fantasy is able to capture an aesthetic like this. One that's a little bit more realistic, mature, but still has that sort of, I guess, Square Enix charm to it. Let's move on. This is more about, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Okay. This coming to us from Dream Boom, who says VG247 says what they have seen of the world of FF16 will have a level of detail that could exceed Elden Ring and have witnessed the presence of populous towns we could explore. It has the potential to set the tone for the generation to come. This is what we're talking about. Open world is great, but haven't you noticed almost all of these open world games are in some post-apocalyptic nightmare where things get to be spaced out and towns get to be like sort of like rebuilding or sort of infantile in their construction. I much prefer sacrificing maybe that sort of open world exploration in the name of having these towns and hubs and cities and lands that we could explore in a much more full manner. But let's get down to the brass tacks. Yoshida notes that the world is still huge, but also very detailed. In a video, we got to see just what this means. This is a lot of graphical fidelity. I personally think the visuals and effects on show in this game denote the proper beginning of the new generation. It's that impressive. And though we were only taking on a whistle-top tour of the game, what I saw put me in mind of Final Fantasies of old, which is what they're going for. Like, say what you will, maybe FF16 won't be for you, but it's clear that they're accomplishing what they're going for. Let's keep this going. There were huge populous towns imposing caves and dungeons, huge areas that we were promised we could explore once the game was properly in our hands. I am not expecting Elden Ring levels of freedom here. The game is an open world after all, but the detail and fidelity in what we've seen so far matches and possibly even exceeds what FromSoft did in its 2022 blockbuster hit. You know, somebody brought up, I think it was Lamb, Sage of the Lodge, earlier in the chat, said, does this have the chance to be the best Final Fantasy ever? And you can have your opinion about it, but if you ask me, that's clearly what they're going for. Okay. If you'll excuse me, I need to run to the little Final Fantasy room, as a friend of mine would say, and refill my water. So another quick break. And yeah, we'll be right back. Hang tight. Good time to grab a snack. Good time to hit that bathroom yourself. We'll be right back with more FF16. We got a little bit more to cover. And then I got some Square Enix news. But we'll be back. All right, we're back. I always appreciate, especially those of you who watch live, because obviously if you're watching this back, you could skip right over that. But those of you watching this live, I do appreciate when I take those breaks that you all stick around. Kevin Ribeiro in the chat says, nowadays open world feels so dead. You know, I'm inclined, I wouldn't say that it feels dead, but it certainly doesn't carry the weight that it used to. Certainly not. Gabe says, hubs make it easier for density, man. 100%. And I feel like I'd rather, because again, right? I'm somebody who, I loved Breath of the Wild. I really did. I loved Breath of the Wild. But I feel like Hyrule didn't have enough personality, right? For those who might be familiar with the game. Kakariko Village was awesome. Hateno Village was awesome. You know, the Gerudo hub was cool. All those hubs were really cool. But I felt like baseline Hyrule, right? Because again, the Zora domain was awesome. The Gorons on the top of the mountain were awesome. You know, they had their hubs that were cool, but like so much of Hyrule was just barren. And the towns of Hyrule that I did get to go to were relatively minimal. You know, I just want more from like your random neighborhood in in these sorts of games. But anyway, let's keep it rolling. What else do we got? Oh, this one. This one's for all the FF14 fans out there. Let me let's back this up so you guys can see it. Okay. No way I couldn't talk about this. No way I couldn't talk about this. After the release of Final Fantasy XVI, is there a chance to start a joint promotion with FF14? Which, we got to do Kingdom Hearts first, baby. We got to do Kingdom Hearts first, baby. Then we can talk. By the way, much love and major shout out to I Can't See Green, who resubbed on Twitch. Don't know if you're still with us. I know that was a while ago, but just wanted to give you that love. All right, but anyway, yeah, they need to get to working on Kingdom Hearts, baby. That's the crossover we want with FF14 first. Then we can do 16. But I mean, it's basically a guarantee. But let's see what he has to say. Yoshida says about this. First of all, as the producer of FF16, I would like to cooperate with FF14. After all, FF14 has a huge player base, and it would be ideal to bring FF16 to the FF14 crowd. But this is not something I can decide alone. I need to discuss it with the producer of FF14. And it so happens that the producer and supervisor of FF14 is also named Yoshida. I will ask his opinion, and if he says it's possible, then it's okay to cooperate. Honestly, it's a guarantee. It is an absolute guarantee. We can expect to see. Honestly, and this is what could be next level crazy. I wouldn't be surprised. I have no evidence to support this claim. Nobody should get too excited. But they might be canonical. I mean, there are hints of FF12 hidden in FF14. Like strong hints. Like you have hints to all sorts of Final Fantasies in 14. But the nods made to 12 are pretty heavy. It's possible. I'll leave it at that. Let's see what else we got. This was an interesting thing to come out from all of this. So, I didn't know this, and maybe this is going to be news to a lot of you guys. Here, I'll make sure I can get it so you can see it. But apparently Japanese devs, or I suppose Yoshi P can speak for his colleagues at Square Enix, at least as far as they're concerned, they don't like the term JRPG. They don't like it. And this was something I wanted to talk about a little bit. Because, I'll read his quote and then we'll get into it. Here we go. This is going to depend on who you ask, but there was a time when this term first appeared 15 years ago, and for us as developers, the first time we heard it, it was like a discriminatory term. As though we were being made fun of for creating these games. And so for some developers, the term JRPG can be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what it was in the past. It wasn't a compliment to a lot of developers in Japan. We understand that recently. JRPG has better connotations and it's being used as a positive, but we still remember the time when it was used as a negative. So I don't know, man. I'm one of the people where it's like, I use JRPG very positively. I did. To me, it was like, I mainly play JRPGs. But honestly, if this makes them feel like they're being excluded from the RPG genre, I get it. Yeah, if they feel like this is putting them beneath the RPG genre, like it's RPG light or RPG goofy, I get that. I support them wanting to be referred to as just straight up RPG, and they're smart. Because that's a larger target audience, and they can dominate that genre, baby. And they know they can dominate that genre. Okay. And here's an example. Okay, good. I'm glad I brought this video up. Here is an example of how JRPGs used to be talked about back in this time. And again, it's worth noting this video was made for comedic purposes, obviously, but this is kind of what they're referring to. So let's give this a quick listen.
And we all know who will replace us. India, that billion-strong faux vegetarian tech support
I have
politics.
no idea what the hell this beginning is.
Or the Chinese. But certainly not Japan, because while they may be technologically advanced and financially powerful, they're already in decline. You want proof? Here's Baten Kaito's origins.
You see what really, and I see why they didn't like it, because she's smiling about JRPGs being in decline. Like, I don't know, I understand where the Japanese devs are coming from. We're like, hey, that term sucks. Anyway, let's keep it going.
All right, the story. Let me guess. There's probably a young hero with some sort of memory problem who's fighting a vastly overwhelming Evo fascio magical empire. Cliche burden boy of action who will save us all is named...
I'm sorry, the man said nothing about after you defeat that empire, you have to go kill a god or kill God himself. Completely left that out. You know, I'm just clowning. Let's keep it going.
Sagi rhymes with sake. Saki! Which I could use a lot of right now.
Sagi.
Saki! And apparently nothing says prequel like improved breast physics on the shopkeepers.
Sagi.
Sake!
Sagi.
Saki! Will you shut up about Sagi?
Sagi.
Saki! 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 Baten Kaido's origin is an RPG for the...
Anyway, that's the kind of stuff I assume that they are referring to. Look, I'll be happy to refer to them as RPGs. They are RPGs. When I talk to people who are a little bit less privy about video game genres, I do refer to them as RPGs. But I do see what they mean, and I feel like in a lot of ways they've been rooted against. I feel like they get that impression. Like Kevin Ribeiro says here, yeah, a game from us over there. Like, yeah, in Japan they don't call them WRPGs. They just call the games that come from the West RPGs. They don't call them WRPGs. So I get their gripe there. Corey Sarakis, dude, what's going on? A Sage of the Lodge, ripping Octopath 2. I love it. But anyway, I want to move on from that. I don't want to get too caught up in that too much, you know. It's just an interesting tidbit that I thought that, you know, I never even thought about. You know, it's made me think about some things. But anyway. Here's an interesting article. I haven't read this. I actually came across this when I was gathering stuff for this episode. But we'll be reading this for the first time. Let's check this out. Okay. The bold creative vision is very much in evidence in the upcoming installment of the series. I want to find the interview. Hold on. Here we go. Here's Yoshida. With Final Fantasy XVI, we didn't want players to feel a sense of repetition. That sense of, I've seen this somewhere before. We wanted to create the feeling that I felt when playing God of War. Yoshida tells Inverse, I wanted to create something that people would think I was crazy for attempting. And again, you can understand why a lot of people love Yoshi P, because he takes big risks. He's got nads. And again, he's got a good track record so far, at least as far as 14 is concerned. Anyway, let's see if we can find more from him. Yoshida says it's a lot like what they do in God of War in regards to the side missions. You have your world map, and in the center of this world map, you'll have a hub area, which we call the hideaway. See, he's retreading a lot of the stuff we've already seen. Because again, guys, the amount of interviews that came out about all of this, and honestly, we're seeing that a lot of them are repeating the same thing. Let's see what else I had pulled up. Okay, this was something else Final Fantasy related I wanted to bring up. Not necessarily 16 related, obviously. Those of you could tell. But very strangely, some Final Fantasy X-3 art dropped. And, you know, those who are very familiar with my channel and this podcast, you know this is a game that I would probably cry if it got announced, because I think it would be amazing. You know, Nomura's made an awful lot of 10-3 art for there not to be a 10-3 game. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, and at the risk of getting expectations too high, I think they're going to do it. I want to do a full video on the case for Final Fantasy X-3, because I've had this suspicion for a very long time. But this dropping out of nowhere, what are we supposed to make of this? It's an artwork for an FF10 show, I think, not 10-3. Okay, so I would love it. I would love it if we could confirm or deny that. Because I've seen this being shared everywhere and people talking 10 is 10-3. But I feel like it can't be a Final Fantasy X artwork because of Riku. Riku especially is the most different. She's nothing like this in 1 or 10-2. In 10 or 10-2. Yuna's looking pretty different. Tidus doesn't have this hairdo in 1 or 2. Auron is looking even older. That's the thing. All these characters look older too. Lulu doesn't have the whole like belt dress that she has in 10. And she's not pregnant like she is in 10-2. I don't know. I mean, I look, if it's 10 artwork, it's 10 artwork, and I'll shut my mouth. But it looks like something that comes after 10-2 to me. Kevin Ribeiro says, I read the novel and just got to say, if the game comes out and if it's dedicated to the novel, a lot of hearts are going to be broken. Oh, don't say that. No, don't say that. Don't say that. I love Tidus and Yuna. Oh, my Lord. Okay. But yeah, let's see. Did I have anything else? Oh, yes, some Square Enix news. Some Square Enix news. The CEO is stepping down. The CEO of Square Enix is stepping down to be replaced by Takashi Kiryu. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is a good or a bad thing. We don't know if it's a good or a bad thing until it happens. Hasn't even taken place yet. Matsuda is still the CEO, but at the next shareholders meeting, they're going to confirm Takashi Kiryu. Again, I am not going to sit here and tell you that this is a good or a bad thing. But I will say this. Matsuda, if I'm not mistaken, became CEO in 2013. And if he's leaving in 2023, in my opinion, I think Square Enix is in a better place in 2023 with him leaving than in 2013 when he arrived. I have my gripes about the man. I am curious how much of an influence he had on all these mobile games that all these franchises got. And again, I know that's a thing that Japan is, it's really big in Japan. But I'm entitled to my opinion. So I have my personal gripes about him, But ultimately, the company's in a better shape after his tenure than it was when he first got there. FF10 Kabuki Show. Check Audrey's account. Okay, we'll go check her account right after this to confirm that. Maria, this is why I love having you here. Thank you. But I'll say this about Matsuda. As a content creator, I'm still a small content creator, obviously. But as a content creator, he never got in the way. There are a lot of companies, especially in the anime world, right? If I show you guys a sliver of Dragon Ball Z, if I give a sliver, that's it, demonetized, done. And it's like that with a lot of different properties. But whether it was Final Fantasy, World Ends With You, Kingdom Hearts, anytime I used scenes from those games, music from those games, sounds from those games, never once got a copyright strike. And there aren't, not every content creator has that luxury with the games that they love. So I will say, just to round it out with Matsuda, for all his warts, I think the company's better off after his tenure than before it. And as a content creator, he led the company in a direction that makes it very easy for people like me to continue to do what I do. So again, with Takashi Kiryu, I wish him all the best with him taking over. I want him to do better than Matsuda, right? That's what you should be rooting for. But, I hope he doesn't go down a road of becoming copywriting everything. I hope we don't go down a road of letting mobile games and NFTs take over console gaming and PC gaming. Look, you can have your side of the business where you make your mobile games and you make your, NFT projects and metaverse. If you want to do that, do that. But just like I don't want Nintendo putting too much focus on making movies even though I think that Mario movie is going to be awesome. But just like I don't want Nintendo putting too much focus into making movies, and I want them to stay focused on their games, I want Square Enix to maintain focus on their biggest properties, on console and PC gaming. Again, company's gonna company. They're gonna do what they want to do over here. Just like mobile game is super popular in Japan, so they're gonna do that. But I hope I hope with Kiryu taking over, that they still stick to their guns, and they don't shake up too much. I'll say that. I think Square Enix has made they've made some silly decisions in my opinion, but they've made a lot of smart ones. Honestly, them selling off those assets and focusing on their core properties, I think is a genius move. They didn't need those Western properties. Most of us come to Square Enix for things like Dragon Quest, Nier, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, The World Ends With You. So them selling off those assets to focus more on those, I think that was a good move. But anyway, enough about this stuff. Let's get a little bit more back into the games and into the game 16. If anybody has any questions, oh wait, that's right. Let's go to Audrey's account and check out the, let's see, I've got her, there we go. From the 10-3 show. Okay, here we go. The second half of the 6-hour-long FF10 Kabuki Theater play is start. Okay. Maria, I'm glad you're here, because I saw a bunch of people sharing this, saying it was like evidence of 10-3. Now, don't get me wrong. The tinfoil hat part of my brain still wants to tell you that this is evidence of 10-3 back here. You know? I still want to tell you that's what this is. But it's good to know that this ties back to an FF10 specific show. So thank you for fact checking that one. Oh, wait! We haven't even watched the battle with Garuda. Okay. That's what we're doing. Switch it up. That's what we're doing. We're going to watch the icon battles, because I've got some comments about this. Let's see. Cool, here we are. This is what I wanted to get to. Let's get you guys some sound. Japan gets all the best stuff. They absolutely do. So, guys, I know I got a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans on this channel. This is the part of the game the Kingdom Hearts devs assisted them with, are these icon battles. Now, here's where we're going to get... Hear me out. We'll watch a little bit more gameplay before I get into that. But see, we have a little bit of a tapping mechanic here. Like, this looks insane to me, dude. Like, some of the attacks are ridiculous. Like, oh my god, man. Like, oh my goodness. Like, the dodging looks smooth. I say the attacks look beautiful. Like, the special effects. Like, the way there's like a... See, if you look, there's a phoenix in every strike. Every one of Ifrit's strikes, there's a phoenix. It's so cool, man. I think he's got a bit of, like, his lunge. If we could get a look at his lunge is really cool. Now, if we recall, we did look at an interview before where they mentioned that future battles with Ifrit aren't going to be this slow and sluggish. This is just sort of the first battle you're doing with Ifrit, so they're sort of showing you the ropes. No, and again, I want to reiterate, this is the part of the game where the Kingdom Hearts devs had the most influence. So take note of the cinematics and take note of the mechanics. If you're curious where I'm going with this, when you look at this icon battle, I want you to think about Gigas fights. If you remember the Gigas from Quadratum, both from like the toy box world and what we saw in the Yozora trailer, think of the Gigas. And the Kingdom Hearts team helped with this kind of combat. I don't see no Keyblade. I don't see no freaking... You know what I mean? This has to be evidence. No, I don't want to say has to. But to me, I think what we're seeing here, the reason why the Kingdom Hearts devs got the call is because they're working on something like this. And when I think about where Kingdom Hearts is going, I think of the Gigas. But let's keep it going. And these cinematics are crazy. But again, I hope that later in the game it's not so heavy cinematic. Because this first fight is very cinematic, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. But I want them to push this gameplay to the limit. Like, damn, dude. This is so insane, dude. Oh! I don't know, man. This could be peak fiction. Dish Raggeter. Oh, Ifrit looks sick, dude. Straight up hitting him with those mountain punches. It does feel very pro wrestling, which is what I know they're going for. Yeah, yo, Kevin, that was a Rasengan, dude. You saw that? That is a straight up Rasengan right there. Yo, but Ifrit looks cool, man. He looks like almost like a volcano, like if Godzilla fused with a volcano. That's what Ifrit looks like to me. So crazy. All of humanity's history has led up to this. For real, though. This game does have a lot of Naruto elements. You know, I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Because, yeah, these are like the summons, you know? Look at this. Yo, Hellfire, the classic. The classic. Garuda slain. Amazing. There's a little cutscene after. We'll watch it. We'll watch it. Oh, boy. Used in craft. Yeah, that's what I'm interested to see, too. I want to see more of the crafting. Whoa. Whoa. Yo, hold on. Oh, no. Look at that. Look at that. Gabriel says, I more so meant that there are Jinchuriki. Yeah, no, honestly, no. The dominant icon thing is basically just Jinchuriki. Ifrit equals Shin Godzilla. I dig it. Like, look at that, dude. That is so epic, man. That is so epic. Oh. Oh, so he can't really control Ifrit. That's interesting. He's got to learn to control it. Dude, the graphics are insane, dude. Look at this. Look at this. Get him, Sid. That was Ramu. That was Ramu. Yo! so intense, dude. Honestly, the more they show of this game, the more I am looking forward to it. Oh, look at that beard! Look at that beard! All right. Yo, that was something. That was absolutely something. Oh boy. All right. Let's catch up with the chat. I think the devs said that the gameplay changes during icon battles because Clive gets more control of Ifrit over time. Ooh, I like that. So he feels less sluggish and you feel less resistance. Ooh, I like that. And I hope that that's a metaphor for something. Not to get too deep, but I hope that that's a metaphor for something. That as Clive gains more control over Ifrit, is to sort of like correct a flaw or be more under control with something in his personality, right? Like we're making Naruto comparisons, like Naruto in the Waterfall of Truth, something like that. I missed a comment up here that was like, dude, Gigas Kaiju fights in the Lost Masters arc. I might have said that earlier, but I'm just going to say it again because, yeah, dude. Again, why else would the Kingdom Hearts team, be recruited to work on these like giant kaiju fights if they weren't cooking up something similar in the Kingdom Hearts series? And again, from what we know with the Gigas, it seems like a perfect fit. Kevin Ribeiro says, a lot like Naruto, he turned into Ifrit out of rage. Yeah. Ooh, just like with the Nine-Tailed Fox. My man, you know something? There might be really a lot of overlap. That'd be cool, man. That'd be cool. Alrighty. Just check a few things on my end. Ugh. Okay, very good. All right. I am actually going to wrap up the podcast here. It's been great. We covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Again, there's so much more out there, guys, that if you really want to see more than what I showed off here today, it's out there. I've dropped a lot of links in my chat to users who are sharing a lot of good information about it. So, if you're interested in seeing more, there's plenty of it out there. I advise you to keep looking into it. There's a lot of more clips too. In fact, let me pull up Noisy Pixel, Orpheus Joshua, a Sage of the Lodge. I'm going to drop this in the chat and I'm going to put it in the description. He put a great compilation together with all the stuff, screenshots, videos, the different interviews. I just dropped it in the chat. Yo, Gabe says, with a $5 super chat, says, I gotta go, but you have good energy and a lot of streamers lack that. Keep up the content. Gabe, I'll be here, dude. I love what I do. That's where the energy comes from. This stuff genuinely excites me. I love this shit. And I love hanging out with all of you and, talking to the chat, sharing ideas. Thank you for that super chat. That goes a long way. Just know you never need to do that. All I ask is you come and hang out. But again, I dropped that chat in the chat. I'll make sure it's in the description once this episode ends. Orpheus Joshua did a great job compiling all of this together. So if you're looking for a deep dive, I would recommend doing so. Let me see. What else did I miss here? And Lamb, welcome back. Welcome back, Junior Sage, my dude. Thank you very much. Always appreciate that. Again, as I always say, it's not an expectation, but I do appreciate it. Thanks for bearing with me. I've been, as you can tell, my voice is a little sore again. I used it a lot today in the last couple days. A lot. I did a lot of recording for videos that are going to come out the next couple of weeks. A lot of long-form stuff, as you saw with Zach, the Hero's Journey. A lot of long-form stuff. Also, it's a time of the year where I do get hit with a few little allergies, but those should clear up soon. We do have another podcast tomorrow with Lands of Masters. Now, what that podcast is about, I'm going to play it close to the chest. It won't be till late at night, but we're having Lands on tomorrow, and then we're going to take a break from podcasts for just a little bit before we dive back in. But anyway, thank you for hanging out, everybody. Always appreciate you being here, hanging in the lodge. It's been great. It's been real. We'll see you on the next one tomorrow night. Peace out, everybody. Final Fantasy XVI right around the corner. Good night.